technology is there at some part. It's just a matter of transporting the same technology into the other sector. And for whom? Better patient care, for which all of us live. Patients are the clients for the health industry. Similar as some client for Will Smith or for Amazon. So I think you're absolutely right. So that is good. Thank you very much for bringing the idea here. Ask question, short.
Yeah, my name is Divakar, Dr. Divakar Supuru. I'm a psychologist. I want to address that, in psychiatry, there is a higher level of...
do we have a microphone for that?
There is a higher level of complaint. Do you know what kind of complaints GMC is experiencing? Is it related to diagnosis or medication? And then when GMC is, investigating, you said 15%, are the genuine complaints where GMC get involved. So, do you have any data from psychiatry to GMC investigation and the reasons? Secondly, I think just connecting Rahul and Dr. Nathan, I think NHS and people like you, how do you connect with each other? Because most of the time, when you go and see the GP, your maximum time is about 10 minutes. And patients are not aware that how to take the medication, and sometimes that communication is missing. So I think it leads to the second part, which is when you're talking about the telemedicine, that how to create an awareness about medication and making sure that you're not over-medicated or under-medicated and reduce the cost. So how do people like you, like NHS, and people like Dr. Nathan can work together for the starting with?
Okay, thank you. Yes, we do have data. We have a plethora of data on all kinds of things, and for anyone that is interested, there is a publication called The State of Medical Education and Practice. The inaugural one was published in 2011. There's one published every autumn. Somewhat of a weighty tome, but you can flick into data that you're interested in. So, to be a bit more parochial on psychiatry, we know, for example, with psychiatry, most of the complaints tend to be around boundary and communications issues. Now, that's the initial influx of complaints, but bear in mind that those are actually boiling down to a doctor not being fit to practice. They become very few and far between, as you'll appreciate. Yeah. So I just want to very briefly comment on the other point as well, because when it comes to compliance with medicines or treatment, a good deal of that is around shared decision making. Are we doing true shared decision making with patients so the patients understand risks, understand how to take them, simple things like understanding how to, but also are we afforded the time in the system to spend time with our patients to help them alleviate their worries about the risks, because leaflets always say, you might die if you take this. And then a patient goes home, sees that, gets terrified, doesn't take the medicine. So a lot of it is about shared decision making. 10 minutes, GP consult, you cannot do true shared decision making. It needs to be done over time, there needs to be follow-up. So there are lots of complexities in that. There are standards around it, but the guidance that we have called consent, but obviously a lot more needs to be done practically on the ground. There's a legal case recently, which we won't bore you with, called Montgomery, that's also worried doctors on the ground, so we need to try and help people deliver shared decision making, basically. That's my view on the medicine compliance bit. But
okay, to answer your first question, which was, so point one was how do we talk to each other? The simple answer is too late, we don't. The answer is no, we don't. In defence, I would say that what we're doing right now is very, very new, and therefore we haven't actually had the chance to build the bridges. But I would expect that what we're doing today, very simply in terms of medication, will be rolled out, I think, to the more interested parties over the next 2 to 3 years quite quickly. It goes back to my point about getting every constituency on board. And I travel around the UK, I see councils, I see CCGs, and actually no two councils, no two CCGs have the same policies. So, Sorry?
That's pathetic but true.
It's a fact.
Surely we should be talking to each other,
Yeah.
making the whole journey better, but there are compartments and barriers.
So in answer to your question, I think you're absolutely right that we have to have clear processes and policies that are implemented from the top. They will be watered down by the time we get to the bottom, because all the different stakeholders will have had their input, which means nothing dramatic will really happen, but something will. There'll be a glacial movement on the ground. In terms of a question asked earlier, who actually puts all this medication into the system? It's actually quite interesting. We're doing an RCT, a randomised controlled trial at the moment, in South West England. And when I look at it, I notice that most stage 1 trials are done with people aged 18 to 25, okay, students. And you've seen that horrific thing happen in France earlier this year where a student died of a new drug. Okay? From there, they then move it up stages until finally a 65-year-old person is deemed fit to be able to take that medication. So the causality between, or the link between someone who's 18, fit, and has no problem with the liver because they haven't started drinking yet, through to someone who's 65, had 40 years on the lash, and that medication is fit for that person too. Question. All I'm saying is question. So we have a lot of medication in this country. One of the things that we have to ask ourselves is that medication appropriate for that individual or for that cohort type? Okay? So by actually checking whether people have taken their medication and then aligning that data with what's done by Rahul and other parts of NHS, which is their comorbidities, etc., we can start to say, is our management of type 2 diabetes effective? Okay?
Yeah.
But you can't make that causality until you have both sides of the coin. We're making causalities at the moment based on one side of the coin, which is this person has these symptoms, therefore it's that. But we're missing that very small piece in the middle, which is, are they taking the medication correctly? And that's not just with diabetes where we're doing controlled trials. We're going to start doing for heart failure. So the reason is the NHS has said 11% of the entire budget is spent on type 2 diabetes and heart failure. So we can start to make an inroad into those two things. We can start to provide a map of how effective the efficacy of medication. Does that help you?
Perfect. Thank you so much.